All right, so crypto's on fire. We all know that. The biggest move still could be ahead of us. There's a lot of things lining up right now. Bitcoin dominating, crushing it. War tensions are certainly cooling between Iran and Israel. Now maybe they'll take a note from Iran and Israel, and they'll cool it off in the Ukraine and Russia. The Fed continues to open the door for crypto. So does the SEC. Stablecoins and Clarity Acts could reshape the entire crypto landscape. But here's the question that's on my mind, that's probably on yours too, is when will the alts begin to pump? You have the Fed. Jerome Powell talks about rate cuts this week. Stablecoin Genius Act is working its way to the president. It still has to pass through the House. The Clarity Act is next. It's going to give more clarity to crypto regulations, which is what many people have been asking for years. The Fed just cleared way for banks by removing the reputational risk. This is really, really big. That means that more banks might get involved in crypto. So a lot of the obstacles to get involved with crypto have been removed by the SEC, the FDIC, the OTC, Office of the Thrift, a lot of these acronyms, the Fed. They're removing all the risk to companies to get involved in crypto in the United States that have been blocking us for several years. Tariffs. We have about 2 weeks left on tariffs. Obviously, the war between Iran and Israel seemed to be going well. They seem to be making as nice as those two could make. Solana is about to get an ETF. This could be any day, according to major sources. More and more companies are doing Bitcoin treasuries or Bitcoin strategic reserves. That causes me a little fear, but right now it's certainly making more buyers with institutional money come and buy Bitcoin. That's another reason why Bitcoin's dominating. And the ETFs, especially Bitcoin, still have massive, massive inflows. There is so much bullish news for crypto right now. Hey, this is Joe from Joe Knows the Cryptos. Welcome to my show today. If you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button. This is not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. I hope it's somewhat entertaining, and if it is, hit the like button. So let's get into it. Bitcoin is dominating. The real question is, when will alts pump? And if you look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, we've been on an upward trajectory, for a while. We had a Bitcoin dominance of 38% back in September of 2022. That started our upward trend. Maybe your friend if you're a Bitcoin maxi, but if you're an altcoin person, when you see that the market is 65 and it peaked at like 66% Bitcoin, Bitcoin made up 66% of the entire crypto market. That is crazy. We've been there before, obviously, in the past, but with this dominance, it begs the question is, what is going to make Bitcoin turn around? What is going to make it not become as such a dominant force, and people are going to run to more returns on the altcoins? Now, in the past, Bitcoin has run up, and it's hit a point where people say, okay, I'm going to buy. It's not really, it's plateaued. It could be going down. I'm going to try to maximize my returns by buying lower cap coins or altcoins, like starting with Ethereum, then down to XRP, Solana, etc. And then all the way down to your dogs and your cats and your penguins and your hippos and all those things. But right now, it is all about Bitcoin. The ETFs have really brought money in. Now, people say there's no retail. I don't agree. The retail is just different. The retail is through the ETFs. People are like, why would I create a wallet and risk losing all my money when I can just go to my broker, my clearinghouse, this huge, massive firm that's heavily regulated, and buy something that way I'm used to buying things like an ETF. I can buy the same power of Bitcoin through an ETF for the most part, and it's really easy. I just, instead of buying Apple or NVIDIA, I'm just going to buy this ETF. And that's where I think retail is. And they say it's institutions, but these institutions made up of people. Yes, they put it in funds and things like that. But for the most part, it's people like me and you that aren't necessarily involved in crypto, so not like me and you, that are buying these ETFs. So that's really what's changed this market, this cycle. And people say, well, this cycle is different. It is different. We didn't have ETFs. We didn't have that access to retail. And so why I think this is big is you have Solana about to come out with their, many companies have applied for their ETF. They did S1 filings, redid their S1 filings per the SEC, and it could be any day we get that approval. And so yesterday, I did a video about my Solana trade. When I saw that oil was going down, not up, I knew a peace deal or something was happening because the Iranians just announced the closing of the Strait of Hormuz. And so I was like, okay, well, with that information, I'm going to put on a long. What should I long? Well, I looked at things like, Bitcoin I thought would go up, but I didn't think the return would be as great. So this is a speculative gamble. It was a 20x play. I made a mistake in yesterday's video. I said that my liquidation price is 105. I thought this was isolated. It's crossed. So the actual, I actually set a stop loss at 135 on this because, if you look at that level, if it goes below 135, it has more room to run down. But right now I'm a little bit in the green. I'm 44% up. It's a small trade. It's 9 Solana. So for every dollar it goes up, I make 9 back. That's not a bad return. But I'm looking for this trade. This is more of a long-term trade. And when I say long-term, I'm looking, if I look at the Fibonacci, even if I look to short-term, if I set this one up, I'm looking for it to go somewhere around that 215 mark, right around here. And that's where I'll start to take profits on this one. I know that Solana can go up a lot higher, but I'm not going to be greedy. Oh, that's pretty greedy. That's still a pretty decent return. That makes me $625 or so off a $128 trade. Now scale this out however you like. I trade through BTCC. This is through the BTCC USDM Perpetuals Futures Pro, which allows a little more maneuverability, a little more features, a little more access. So this is the one I like. I'm not telling you to trade with them. I have an affiliate link down below. I do make money if you do that. But, if you trade already and you want to try a new one out, I use this one. So do what you do. Anyway, that's all I got on that. But look, so my Solana trade is still in the green here. It's facing some resistance right now. This red line I have, let me remove this. This red line I have right here is the resistance, and it is bouncing off that. So, what will make it push above this level of resistance? And that would be the approval of the ETF in my mind. And if that ETF gets approved, it's not guaranteed. There's a 90% chance in the poly markets, I believe, last time I checked. I do believe that some other people are saying it's an 85 to 90% chance. But look, it's been playing around this line, this ceiling of resistance. And if it can get enough energy to break above that, it has a lot of room to run. So that's what I'm looking at, is it breaking through this channel here. And like I said, the catalyst for this could be the ETF approval. So in the meantime, it could trend downwards and bounce off this thing. But I'd love to see it bounce to the upside, which I'm sure many, many people would be. So let's go back to the Fed. So the Fed has right now last week, or I should say earlier this week, Jerome Powell spoke to Congress and answering a lot of dumb questions by a lot of dumb people, but I'm not here to comment much more on that. And this time around, the Fed is doing something a little different. In the past, they've always said they're data driven. But right now, they're speculative. They're not taking the data approach. If they were taking a data approach, they would have dropped the rates already because we're working towards a 2% inflation. It's moving that way. It's like steering a freighter. That freighter, takes a lot of energy to move it. And once you start steering, it starts going in a direction. It takes a lot of energy to move it back around, just like our economy. So waiting too long to drop the rates, we might see inflation go negative. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. That's more likely a recession, but you could have negative GDP growth and you could have inflation. That's stagflation. That's dangerous. That's what they're worried about. But right now, that inflation number is going down, down, down. We're still inflating, but at a lower rate. We're deflating. And so my concern is that we're waiting too long to drop the rates. And they're using a speculative approach based on what people have said might happen in the future, which is something the Fed hasn't really done before. That being said, the possibility of a July rate cut has now jumped to 20%. We were at about a 0% a couple weeks back. September, it's only a 14% chance they don't raise the rates. But in the past, we've had similar outlooks, and then we had tariffs, and then all this changed. So this could change all in a heartbeat if tariffs end, and tariffs have about a 2-week window left. So either a lot of deals got to come to the table, or we're going to see a prolonged period of tariffs, which means that the Fed is going to be reluctant to cut the rate, which means we probably won't get a rate cut very soon. But right now, September looks all but guaranteed, currently, given the current set of data, and that could change. October, we're looking at more cuts. December, if you look at this, you're saying about 80% chance will be between 350 and 400, which is about a 50 basis point, 100 to a 50 basis point difference from where we are now. So all in all, fairly relative that we're probably going to get a rate cut if things keep moving along how they're moving. If tariffs go away, this all changes and the rate cuts become more imminent. Last up, Bitcoin dominance. We talked about that, but just look at the Bitcoin price. Now, we've been trading in these ranges. Like right now, we're range trading. Oh, where's my trend line? We're range trading right here. If I draw some parallel lines, there's a lot of trading opportunity in here. But that being said, right now, Bitcoin could easily break out with all the institutional interest. Bitcoin could easily break out of this. We're pushing up against 107 right now, and 107, 331. I with the way the institutional buying is going, the ETF inflows, I would not be surprised if we reach new all-time highs. Everything else being equal, no crazy changes in the world, just by the buying that's going on, I would not be surprised if this happened in the next week or so. That would not surprise me at all, especially if we get some kind of bullish announcement about tariffs. If that happens, expect this to just explode, in my opinion. So, all in all, we have Bitcoin is certainly dominating. The Fed is tilting towards more of a dovish stance, which is really good for money flow and money supply. We've all heard the M2 experts out there. We have new legislation that's paving way, the Stablecoin Act, the Genius Act, Clarity Act coming through. The Solana ETF could drop any day now, so be very aware of that. Now, it could be a buy the news type event, buy the rumor, sell the news type event. But I think it's going to be that catalyst, especially if you have millions and millions of dollars of inflows, which we've already seen many millions of dollars in inflows to the ETFs in Canada for Solana. So the writing is on the wall, and we're certainly primed for a breakout moment for crypto again. I think the fourth quarter is going to be extraordinarily exciting. We're not quite there yet, but I do think it starts this summer. So do not sleep on the altcoins. I do believe their day is coming. And obviously, historically, when Bitcoin stabilizes after that breakout, which I think is going to come after the tariffs, probably in mid-July, maybe August, alts tend to explode. Now, don't make a bet on that based on what I just said, but stay sharp and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you've made it this far, let me know by putting a like down below. That's all I got, and I'll see you next time.